welcome to Musing Maker. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been a returning viewer, welcome back. I'm Harriet. I've been a knitter and crocheter for a little over 40 years now. A couple of years ago I learned to spin and to weave as well, and this channel is where I come to talk about the various projects and challenges that I undertake in the world of the fiber arts. My hope is that you'll find content here that is useful and interesting to you on your own fiber arts journey. Okay, so you may have noticed that I missed last week posting a video. Here on the East Coast, we've had some pretty wild weather. So my full intention was to record a podcast last Monday and post it. And I woke up to, I would say, a wintry wonderland, but it kind of went beyond that. So some have called it a snowpocalypse. We had close to 3 feet of snow in a 24-hour period, and so I will put some photos in here of what I awoke to. Basically, all of the windows were covered with frozen snow, and there was little to no natural light coming in, and the wind was howling, and yeah, we were in a full-fledged blizzard. So I spent most of Monday kind of knitting and then occasionally going outside to try to shovel a little bit. And then the rest of the week was spent shoveling out, and we had a travel ban. And then, you know, one of my kitties also decided to, well, she didn't decide, she certainly didn't want to, ended up very sick for a couple of days. Luckily, she timed it so that the travel ban was no longer in effect and we were able to get her to the vet, and she's doing much better now. But basically, by the end of the week, I felt like I had lived through a full month just in the last week of February. But we're back now, and I have a few things that I want to talk about. So let me get started with my finished objects. So the first finished object I want to talk about is not really an object, it's more of a project. So as you probably know from other videos that I've done, I have been working my way through level 2 of the Knitting Guild Association's Master Hand Knitter Certification Program, and I submitted my level 2 materials. They were returned to me in January with some required revisions, and so I'm pleased to report that I have completed those revisions and sent them back for a second round of evaluation. And they got kind of stalled in the snowstorm, but they're, you know, making their way. And so, yeah, I have a little bit of a break from that to see sort of what they have to say about the second round of revisions. Another project that I finished working on in the month of February, I don't have it here with me because it was a gift. I made a Jaunty scarf. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. It's knit in half fisherman's rib, and I think I've talked about this in a previous podcast. Now that I'm here talking about it, it's sort of coming back to me. But I basically used some of the hand spun that I had from my subscription to the top of the month from Three Waters Farms throughout the year of 2025. And yeah, I ended up creating this nice, I made the smallest available size, and I ended up with this really nice sort of, not really a shawl, but a little bit more than a scarf, and it was in very bright, cheerful colors, and so I sent it along to a friend of mine who could use some bright, cheerful colors in her life right about now. My third finished object is a project that felt appropriate to work on during the month of February because we had a lot of really cold Arctic temperatures, followed by the blizzard, the record-setting blizzard that we had last week. And so I had come across this project earlier, or this pattern rather, earlier, and it's a pattern called Snowfall Town by Season Kyan, I think her name is, and it's a pattern for a hot water bottle cover. and I wanted a new cover for my hot water bottle, so here's mine. So I did a few things differently with this. I was using up some scrap yarn, and so I have a mix in here of fingering weight yarn held double and just scraps of other DK weight or worsted weight yarn as well. A couple of modifications that I made, right? If you see the pattern itself, right, the snowflakes on the pattern itself are much more almost like, I think they're called lice in the Scandinavian tradition. I didn't really want that, so I used an intarsia technique to make the snowflakes look a lot more random. And I don't know that I love how that came out. I think I kind of overdid it maybe a little bit with the snowflakes. I like the way it looks on this side a little bit better than on that side. But it was, again, a chance to use up some scrap yarns. And so, yeah, I'm okay with it. I also, so these, what look like windows, lighted windows, those are duplicate stitched on after the fact, and so I added a couple little extra windows at the top, and I used two different colors for the lighting. I just thought that would look, I liked how that looked. So I decided that I finished the color work up until, right, this point. I'll show you the side I like better. Up until this point here. And before I started the decreases for the shaping of the bottle, I put the project on barber cords, I tried on tubing and blocked it, and then did the duplicate stitching because I did not want to, I mean, I suppose you could have, yeah, actually, no, I don't think you could turn it inside out and work on it that way either. That wasn't going to make it any easier. So I basically, if you stop here before you do the decreases and do the duplicate stitching, it's just much easier because you can kind of roll the top down and get to the little houses at the bottom that you need to work on. I think if you finish the entire thing, then you're gonna have to jam your hand down into the bottle cover. So that was a change that I made in addition to doing the intarsia, doing the snowflakes in an intarsia format as well. I also, obviously used more colors because I was using up scrap yarns. For the neck of the bottle, they suggest that it should be 14 centimeters long because the idea is that you could kind of double it over and roll it down. As you can see, I did not make mine 14 centimeters, in part because I didn't have that much yarn left over. That would also make for a very, this I think is about 10 centimeters. So it would have been, quite a bit longer if I had followed the pattern on that. But I was fine. I just wanted it, kind of to come over the top of the bottle. And so that's what it does. And I can roll it down a little bit. And yeah, so I have a new hot water bottle cover. And I think that this pattern was really well written, accessible. If you're looking for a pattern, obviously it fits the hot water bottle that I have really well. And it's free, so I think that there's a lot of, you could obviously make other modifications if you didn't want to just do, you could use more colors if you wanted to do 3-stranded color work. I know a lot of people are not, fond of that, but you could do it if you wanted to. Yeah, there's just a lot of little modifications you could make to it to make it your own. But I think it was a cute project. It was a cute pattern, and yeah, it really suited the month of February for me. So I'm glad that I have it. So moving on to works in progress, I picked this one back up. I started it a while ago, I think back in January, and then kind of set it aside. So during some of the cold, snowy weather that we had, I began to resume working on my Marian Girl cardigan. And so this is a cropped cardigan for a child, for a young girl. although it wouldn't really have to be a girl actually. And it's got a really sweet little lace pattern that goes down the back in particular, but also across the front of it. So here it is. And I will turn it so that you can see the lace pattern on it. I will also put a picture up. And so as you can see, I am on Sleeve Island, and I have actually finished all the decreases for this, and so I just need to lengthen the sleeve out and put the cuff on it. And so my hope is that, you know, today I will finish doing that. It also gets a little button on the front, right? So it's meant to be cropped. So not a full length cardigan, but it's got a little, it's very cute because it's got a little flare on the bottom part of it. It's a really enjoyable lacy sort of pattern to make. Very simple, very straightforward. I am using, this is again a stash buster, so I'm using some leftover High Desert Sport yarn that I have. That's from Knit Picks in the color Campion, and I actually really love this High Desert Sport yarn. It's very soft, it's wool. Yeah, I keep wanting to buy more and more of it, but I'm trying to work through the stash that I have. But I have some other High Desert Sport that, yeah, I may work on another project later with. But yeah, so this is a pattern by Tyga Hilliard, and it's a great pattern. I really like it. It comes in a wide range of sizes. I think it goes from, you know, 0 to 3 months all the way up to 4 to 6 years. I'm making it for the daughter of a friend of mine, so I'm making it a little bit bigger. It has the option to work in short sleeves or long sleeves. I picked the long sleeve option. Short sleeve option, equally cute. And yeah, so I'm thinking this is probably going to be a finished object and get blocked by the end of today. Okay, so another work in progress that I have, that I've been working on little by little. This is actually a men's sweater, and the pattern is called Middlemarch, and it's by Norma. And this one has a unique construction, right? So I think I've talked about this before, right? That you knit these cable patterns separately, and then you use a 3-needle bind off to join them at the shoulder. And then you begin working the rest of the body in the round from the top down. Okay? So basically you're doing the cable pattern. It's kind of hard to hold and show at the same time, but you start the cable pattern here. So you work bottom up on the cable pattern for the front, bottom up on the cable pattern for the back. You're doing the neckline shaping. It has dropped sleeves, so you don't have to worry about too much in the way of shoulder shaping. And then you get those two pieces of the front and the back, 3-needle bind off them together, and then you have, because you're putting these stitches kind of on hold at the start, then you work the body. And you keep this line that goes down the center. Try to hold it up. Again, it's a men's sweater, so it's quite big. But yeah, so I am almost to the point where I'm going to be doing the ribbing on the body, and then I will need to do the sleeves on this one. But it's a really, yeah, it's a quick and interesting pattern. Having the line that goes down the front and the back of those textured stitches actually sort of helps make the you know, stockinette in the round go a little bit more quickly, because there is you know, some change that you have to make as you go. It's like a kind of like a little bit of a seed stitch. Try to hold it up so you can see it. So there's some seed stitch, there's knit through the back loop, and that, yeah, that gives it a little bit of more interest than if you just kind of had to do stockinette in the round. The yarn that I'm using is Barocco Ultra Alpaca in the color Jaunty, and yeah, I'm still a ways away, I think, from finishing this one up, but I'm hoping to kind of make a little more progress on it over the next week or two. At the very least, I'm hoping over the next couple days to finish the body and then move on to working on the sleeves. But this yarn is really soft, it's really nice. It's been a really cozy knit to be working on over the last month or so. And this one is also a gift for a friend. I tend to knit a lot of, to make a lot of knits for other people. I have plenty of sweaters for myself, so a lot of times my go-to is to simply create things for other people. It's just what I do. And so the third work in progress that I want to show you is actually a kind of continuation of work that I started for the level 2 of the Master Hand Kniter certification program. As one of the projects for that, you have to create an Argyle sock. And so I've been really kind of trying to perfect the ability to work Argyle without driving myself nuts. And so I'm making a second sock to go with the first one that I have mailed off for evaluation. And as you can see, yeah, Argyle socks are a funny thing because you have to knit them flat, and then you generally either seam them up the back or up the side of the sock itself. And so I'm at the point where I've basically finished the leg of the sock. And these are worked cuff down. There are ones that you can work toe up. And I am now about to start doing this pair of socks has a heel flap and gusset. This is a pattern by Jennifer Dones, and I don't know if it's available outside of the Master Hand Kniter Guild subscription. But yeah, it's the trick with doing Argyle is kind of making sure that there's good stitch definition. I mean, there are two ways to work Argyle socks, right? You can either do them in tarja style, or you can go back over and duplicate stitch the lines on when you're done. And personally, I don't really feel that the duplicate stitch would be that much faster, but maybe that's just because me with poor eyesight. And I also, personally, I sort of worry that with duplicate stitching, you're going to have a double layer of fabric going up through there. So I really wanted to perfect making intarsia, getting good at intarsia, and having sort of 3-color intarsia. And it really is something that just requires a lot of practice. And I've got these, yes, some of these ends are pulled forward to the front, just because the real trick with intarsia, it's not really a trick, but the challenge with intarsia is, you know, you'll always have all of these like bobbins or ends or something hanging off the back of the fabric, and they will drive you nuts. They just will, right? There's really kind of no way around it. And I think that you have to kind of make your peace with feeling like it's a little bit fiddly, but also kind of try to come up with a system that works for you, that won't drive you kind of nuts. So that's what I've really been practicing. And so right now I am working the heel flap on this, and then I will turn the heel. And then once you do that, you then kind of join to this part, so the pattern will continue, right? So this, on these instep stitches, right, this will be the top of the sock, this will be the heel of the sock, the heel and the foot. Once you get past this point, you're only working the Argyle on the instep. Hallelujah. Right, so it's a little bit less fiddly once you get to this point. So that's my work in progress. I worked actually this part of it, you know, one long afternoon of snow and wind, and then just decided to take a little break. But I'm actually pretty happy with how, with my intarsia skills, how they're developing, right? And so, yeah, I'm gonna finish this one up, and then I will have this one, and then once the materials are returned to me from Master Hand Knitter certification. I will have the other sock, and I'll have a pair of Argyle socks. It's sort of a random thing to have, but yeah, I'm happy with it. Okay, so even though the month of February was, for me, devoted to finishing up a bunch of projects, and kind of the major one being the Master Hand Knitter certification materials, I couldn't resist casting on a new sweater project. And so the project that I'm working on right now is the new Norma. And you've probably seen this project around a bit. And I have decided to do it with a superwash yarn, and I'm using, again, trying to use up some of the superwash yarns that I have in stash. And so here it is. Okay. So as you can see, I've made pretty good progress on it. This is knit from the top down, and you basically start by kind of casting on and then knitting the back using short rows on the back, and then you pick up from this shoulder edge and you knit the front on each side, and then you join the two fronts. And it's kind of one thing that I did notice in the pattern is that it tells you to pick up between the stitches when you pick up for the shoulder. I did not do that. It said it will make a neater seam. I did not do that because, yeah, picking up in the stitch is usually how you kind of create that continuity, right? So if you don't want a visible seam on the shoulders, then you have to pick up in each of the stitches. So I can show you on this one. So this is where I did the pickup for the shoulder seam. Let me just try to get it so you can see it better. Okay, so that's where I did the pickup. And so as you can see, my goal was to make sure that there's continuity across the stitches. And I can show you, this is what it looks like on the reverse side of the fabric. Trying not to turn everything inside out here. Okay, so that's what it's looking like on the reverse side. So, I mean, one of the issues that you're always going to run into when you're knitting sweaters top down is the issue of the shoulder seam, right? Kind of creating that neat continuity on the shoulder. So one of the advantages to working sweaters, you know, bottom up and then seaming them together is that you can set that seam right on the shoulder line, and you know, it will be sturdy. So if you opt not to do that, then you have to figure out something, because if you just try to knit a top-down sweater and put that seam right on the shoulder, the weight of the sweater itself is going to cause it to pull out of shape. So you may not like seaming, but it does serve a purpose to give the sweater a certain amount of structure. So that's why with the sweater that I just showed, the Middlemarch sweater, where she's having you knit kind of from the midsection up and then in cable work and then seaming those two shoulders together, she's using a 3-needle bind off. Right, so this Middlemarch sweater is taking advantage of using a 3-needle bind off to make it basically a decorative feature of that shoulder. But that's also because, given, you know, the size and the weight, is that if you don't do that, this shoulder, this would just stretch out, right? There's nothing to kind of, like, the knit stitches themselves unseamed are not strong enough to hold that sweater and keep it from pulling out of shape. So what a lot of top-down sweaters do, and that's exactly what this new Norma does as well, is, you know, when you knit the front a bit longer than the back, and she has a note that lets you know that. because the goal is that when you join the two in the round, that seam, that shoulder seam, is actually sitting back here, right? So that's the solution a lot of times. If you're working top-down sweaters, you will see that they put the shoulder seam back here, right? So that you're basically not having the whole front of the sweater pull out of shape, right? It gives the sweater, it accounts for the fact that there's not a seam right on the shoulder, to give it a little bit more structure. So that said, right, if you do that, right, if you're picking up a shoulder seam in stitches that are already existing, you usually want to make sure that that seam is not quite so noticeable across the back. And so that's why I was not really clear on why she said to pick up in between the stitches, because generally you pick up in the stitch itself if you want to create a less visible seam. And usually that's what you want to do, unless you're using the seam as a decorative feature. All that said, right, I'm really enjoying this pattern. It's going very quickly. I would say that's, one of the advantages when you switch from making an Argyle sock using fingering weight intarsia, and you then go over to something that's being knit in, worsted weight and superwash, so it's nice and soft and squishy. And I'm using size 9, US 9 needles, which are, what I should know, are those, I think, 5mm. Yeah, it moves a lot more quickly than something being knit on size 2 needles, US 2 needles in fingering weight. So yeah, this is also a gift for a friend. I decided a lot of the projects that you use, it's holding, the original pattern calls for holding multiple yarns together, and I think one of them is either a surrey alpaca or a mohair to kind of give it that fluff and fuzz look to it. So the sweater that I'm creating, because I'm using superwash yarn, is going to have a very different look, and I also decided that I wanted to use darker stripes on a lighter color. So this gray yarn is Knit Pick Swish, and the color is Dove Heather. This dark blue is just something I had in stash, but I know it's superwash. And then this turquoise turquoise blue is a Cascade 220 superwash, and I think the color is called Heather Sky. And so, yeah, that was my cast on to make me feel like I just wanted something that I could cast on and sort of work through a little bit more quickly, and give me a break from the stockinette in the round of the Middlemarch sweater, but also give me a break from the kind of fiddliness of the intarsia sock. And this pattern kind of ticks all the boxes on that front, right? So it's got, you're doing again rounds of stockinette in this one for the gray, but then it's broken up, right? So I think you're doing, almost a couple dozen rows of single color, and then you've got this very easily memorizable color work pattern. And when you're working the backs and the fronts, you do have a portion of it where you're having to purl because you're working back and forth, so you do have to purl in color work. But yeah, she really kind of makes that easy, because as you can see, right, these lines across here are single color, so you really only have like about 4 rows where you're having to kind of alternate colors while also purling in color work. And so you only do that for the one stripe on the back and then the one stripe on the front, and then you're joining and you're working in the round. So there's no more needing to purl in color work. So she really kind of keeps that at a minimum. I hope that you found something interesting or useful here. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe. Help the algorithm push this content out a little bit more, and I will see you back here again next week. Thank you so much for watching.